In this video, we're going to practice the basic data operations in Pandas. We're going to use the Gapminder dataset, which again contains country demographics data over time. So we have data about the country, continent here, life expectancy, population, and GDP per capita. First, create a new column in the data frame called life expectancy in month, and the value of this column should be the value of the life expectancy times 12, because this is life expectancy in years. So first we need to pull the columns from the data frame, the column life expectancy. This will give me a Pandas series. Next, I'm going to multiply this by 12. That simply is because Pandas will then broadcast this operation, the multiplication, over all of the values in the series here. And what I get a new series containing the values multiplied by 12 for each one of the values. The question is asking us to create a new column in the data frame. Hence, I'm going to assign the resulting series to a new column called life expectancy in month. And this new column should be the value of multiplying life expectancy by 12. This pattern is a very common pattern when you're processing data in data frames. I operate on series corresponding to columns and then assign them back to the data frame. And this is kind of the data process when we use a spreadsheet. Very often we apply a certain operation on a column and create a new column in our spreadsheet. The next question is asking us to create a new column GDP, which is the total GDP, meaning we need to multiply population by the GDP per capita. So I need first to access the population, second access the GDP per capita, and then multiply them. So I'm going to access the population by pulling that from the data frame. I get myself a series, and of course, I can access the second one, which is GDP per capita, which is GDP per cap here. I'm going to do it in 2 steps for now. And I get another series. Now, because those 2 series are pulled from the same data frame, they have exactly the same row index. So when I combine them using a multiplication operation, the index will obviously align. That's the same index. So I will get this value multiplied with this value multiplied with this value, and so on. Once again, don't forget, Pandas will align the indices and then will broadcast the operation. Here, the indices align, so I'll get the multiplication of each population with the corresponding GDP per capita. And I get myself a new series here. Okay, so what I need to do now, I'm going to assign this back to my data frame, a new column called GDP. Will be this value. I can take a look at the head of the data frame just to make sure it's doing the right thing here. And I have myself the column here. The last question is asking us to round life expectancy to an integer and then override the values in life expectancy. So there are 2 steps. First, convert this to an integer and then override the values in life expectancy. How do we do it? Well, let's first remember how we convert a number to an integer in Python. Well, there are 2 functions here. There is the function round, which will round the number, and there is a function called int, which will not round the number. Well, let's do it 4.6. This will round it up. Int will just force convert it to an integer. It will throw any decimal part. We're not concerned about whether we're using rounding or int here. Simply speaking, I can use either. The question doesn't specify which one we want to use. Well, how do we apply this function on a series? The series in question is data life expectancy. Now, you may wish that I can do something like this: integer data life expectancy, or round data life expectancy. Now, round works fine, but int doesn't work well. And the reason is that round as a function works on a sequence of values. However, the function int doesn't work on a sequence of values. It only works on one value. It's not a universal function. That has to do with the internal details of each one of these functions. Okay, so we can either use round if we wish, and this will round it up, which will round the number up in each one of these series, the value of the series, and then we can assign it back to the data frame. Let's say for the purpose of this example that I insist on using the function int. What do I do in this case? This is a very important data operation, because many often you have a function that works for a single value, and this function doesn't have a native implementation as a universal function. It doesn't work on a sequence of values. But we still would like to use the function that works on a single value. I'll give you an example. Let's for instance say you have demographics data or maybe financial transaction, and you want to determine whether a certain person is approved for a loan, and this function only takes one person value object, but you have a bunch of customers and clients, right? So you want to apply it on each one of them. Well, obviously a natural answer would be to write a loop, and we can definitely go ahead and write a loop to do this transformation. I'm going to write a loop, and then I'm going to show you how not to write a loop and do it without doing a loop. Okay, so first let's keep in mind that round would work fine, and I can basically say data life expectancy is being assigned to round. Okay, but let's now say that, well, I don't want to use round, I want to use int. How do I use int here? Okay, so I'm going to write a loop first. I'm going to write a loop, and I'm going to start with a new list called new data. And what I will do now, I'm going to go for each value in data life expectancy. In data life expectancy, well, the rounded value is the int of this value, and then I'm going to do new data dot append this value here. Once I do this, I get a list of these rounded things, and then I can assign it back to the data frame. I'm going to assign it to a new column so that I don't delete life expectancy for now, because I want to show you how to do it without using a loop. Let's call this one int life xp. And Pandas will look at new data, will figure out it has the same length of the series, so it will put these items one by one in the data frame as they're supposed to be. Okay, so that's what we get here. If you take a look, that's the int life expectancy. Writing a loop is not a very kind of preferable choice here, because it's doing much more than what we want, and it's also confusing, and it's also forcing us to loop over a series or a data frame. Now, what I'm going to do now, I'm going to show you how to do it without using a loop. And the key function here is called apply. Apply is basically a function that takes another function and apply it on all of the values in the series. So we take our series here, which is data life expectancy. Now the values are not integers. Next, I want to apply another function here, and the function here that I want to apply is int. So I call the function apply and pass in my function, which is int, to this function. What this will basically do, it will take this function int and apply it on each one of the values. So I get myself a new series that has the values converted to integers. Let's call this one life expectancy 2, for instance. Okay, and obviously those should be the same values. This apply function is very essential, and it's very useful because it's allowing us to circumvent the fact that we need a universal function. If we have a function that is not universal, it's not an issue. We can make the function operate on the whole series by passing it to apply. We will revisit apply many times soon, and over the course of this course. It's a very useful function to operate on data in data frames and series. Okay. Now